So here we are in week 7, and just note that we are actually going into chapter 4. So we have just finished chapter 6 last week, and now we're going back into chapter 4, which is consciousness. Just want everyone to be aware of that so that you're not going and starting into chapter 7, thinking that we're going in order. Here is your to-do list for the week. Let's skip down to learning objectives. Actually, I do want to say really quickly, make sure that you're paying attention to all the dates on the syllabus. Last week, the Plato system had the dates wrong. It added a day for the quiz and it added a day for the exam. I don't know why. So you actually got an extra day last week. And a student pointed that out and asked why it was different from the syllabus, and I didn't even realize that it had done that. So you got an extra day, but this week we are back to following the syllabus. Hopefully that error doesn't happen again. I've double-checked everything. But when in doubt, always go to the syllabus so that you don't miss anything that's important. Normally, the quizzes are due on Fridays and the exams are due on Sunday. So that's pretty much a good rule of thumb to be following. So I have that up here just in case you are on Plato and need it for a quick glance. I do want to say also for your discussion board posts, last week was a little bit rough. I still notice a good handful of students who are not responding to any other people's posts, and this is really hurting your grade if you're doing that. You're automatically losing 6 points and only getting a maximum of 4 out of 10, and that's if your original post is perfect. So make sure that you're responding to people's posts. And I think across the board, the errors that I'm still seeing is just people not really putting enough into these posts, really lacking in integration of the textbook and concepts. I know I've said this lots of times, so I'm sorry if it is repetitive for you, but I want to see that you're citing your sources from the textbook. So when I give you, let's skip down to the discussion question really quickly. When I give you these questions, they're based on the Hawk reading. That's where they come from. So you got to do the Hawk reading, but they definitely touch on everything that's talked about in the textbook. So the textbook's another really great source to add to the content of your answers as you're going through these questions. And what I see is people largely not integrating the textbook at all. The textbook is the source that helps to explain the origins of a lot of theories as to why certain things happen or why they don't, where it comes from. So that's going to be your main sort of source for backing up your opinions. Now, some of the questions I ask you are opinion questions, but anytime you are asked your opinion, it would be great to see that you're also going to the research and saying, I think that, sleepwalking is bogus. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's real. And here's why. And you would want to cite some of the research. Or if you believe the opposite is true, again, you're going to be doing the same. So great to cite your opinion, but you want to follow that up with research. And what I'm trying to get you used to doing is having informed opinions, not just opinions that are based on maybe hearsay or something that's just not really grounded in any real studies or research. So that's a little bit about the discussions. I'm hoping that with that said, I see some of those improvements this week. But the chapter this week is largely on the area of consciousness. Now, make sure that you're always using the correct spelling. Our conscience is what we think of usually when we think of Freud. He had a lot to say about the conscience, your subconscious, your what you're fully aware of, and then things that underlie at a more implicit level that we're not necessarily aware of, but operate on us nonetheless. Things like classical conditioning and operant conditioning, which we've already covered. So this is a great area to even be thinking about some of that material that we covered a couple weeks ago when we talked about learning. It might be involved here as you're going through and you're understanding the different levels of consciousness, biologically what's going on when we're sleeping. The book spends a good deal of time walking you through the sleep cycles and what our brain is doing during each, and then gets into sleep disorder. So here, right here, point 4.5 is going to be a great area from your textbook to map onto the discussion reading for the Hawk reading, because the Hawk reading asks you about sleepwalking and some sleep disorders and how that could be used in defense of something like murder. So that would be a great area to be referring to when you're working on your discussion. Then you're going to get into some of the theories, and again, these are informed conclusions as to why people dream. What's the purpose of dreams? Do we see cultural differences in the dreams that people describe they have? Do we see gender differences? Those are all really good questions that the book is going to talk about. It's going to get a little bit further into the area of hypnosis and how that works, who it works best on, and what might be some of the benefits of it, which then goes right into meditation and some of the benefits health-wise of meditation. And it concludes with the latter portion of the chapter spending some time on psychoactive drugs, and the effects of stimulants, depressants, hallucinogens, all of that on your consciousness and what it really is doing to you neurologically and physiologically when you're taking said drugs. So that would conclude the content for the chapter. Here are the lecture slides. And all the videos that you're going to be watching this week come from episode 6 in my psych lab. And there's some really great ones. I really highly recommend just working through each of those. Especially there's some good ones on the neurological mechanisms of what's going on when you're dreaming. So some interesting perspectives into the research there. Some people think that dreams have meaning and that they're just a way for your brain to leak out what you're feeling that it might not do when you're conscious. And then some people believe that dreams are just more of random neural firings, sort of like your brain releasing excess energy, and it pulls from stored memories, fears, again, tapping into learned responses like those that are classically conditioned, and so some of that could be tapped into when you're dreaming, but it doesn't necessarily have a meaning, which is why a lot of times our dreams don't make sense. So definitely take a look at that. There's some interesting researchers interviewed in this episode that propose their different theories on consciousness. And then here we're back to your discussion. And just making sure that you're replying to 3 other students and answering all of the questions thoroughly in your original response. And you want to leave a little bit of time after you've done your original response before you start responding to other people. You want to make sure that everyone's had a chance to submit their original response before you kind of jump in there. I've included the cite as you write instructions again, because I noticed a lot of people are still having issues citing. If you just pull up this document, it's 1 page, I would suggest print it out. It's got examples of how to cite. It's really very basic, really very simple, but you need to do this, especially if you're a psych major. Understanding how to cite correctly in APA is something you're going to have to do for the rest of your undergraduate career. So you want to make sure that now you're kind of getting a handle on that. And if you're another social science major, that would include you as well. Many of the other social sciences use APA style for writing. Quiz 6, again, closes by Friday, and then you have an exam this week that is going to go ahead and cover Chapter 4 from this week and Chapter 6 on memory from last week. So you're looking at memory and consciousness being the content on the exam. And that concludes the week. So again, please let me know if you have any questions, if anything goes wrong or looks funny or looks off. I sometimes rely on you all to tell me because a lot of times I don't see the screens that you see, especially as you're working through some of your material. So if ever you have a question or aren't sure about something, please just shoot me an email and I'll help you the best I can. Thanks everyone and have a great week.